Pretty good looking meal.
Yeah, we're all here.
Hey, Council, all right.
So how did you get connected with her?
Nice.
Um,
That's it. Feel free to jump right in. We have to
Eric
cross so
Taylor.
much. You can't really.
It's hard to eat and
Yeah.
and develop. But that- okay.
Used to be the-
For 200 bucks. right?
Yeah, I used to be at the count on Leo to fill some time. And far enough away when you're talking, it's still on camera, so it's hard to
Yeah, I know. I'll try to lean.
take it away, John. Yeah. Thanks. Follow the camera to follow you. Pan left, pan left.
Done some trainings out there. At the. And now I'm doing this.
I still don't have
Yeah.
the email on my phone yet, so I'm feeling a little.
Yeah, I never have had it. A big change for you.
Yeah, I'll get it. Okay, everybody ready? Good afternoon and welcome to the Monday, March 23rd meeting of the Orono Town Council. A roll call shows that we have Councilor Larway, Councilor Hardison, Councilor Marks, Councilor Demerit, Councilor Powers, Councilor Baker, Councilor Quinn, and Mitch Stone, Assistant Town Manager, is sitting in for Clint DeShan, who's traveling back, and he's run into all the confusion that is with the airports. So Godspeed, Clint and family. We welcome, looking forward to having you back in Orono. And with that, we'll do first agenda review. And this is an opportunity, items A under agenda review are the items that have been referred to our various committees for work. We keep this here for, as a reminder to the council and the public of the items that are being worked on at that level. We don't have any tabled items, and this is also an opportunity for us to add or move anything on the agenda that we typically would do by unanimous agreement if there's anything that any council would like to ask about or add to tonight's agenda. Any questions? Perhaps a charter change saying the town manager can't leave the country on vacation, or the contiguous 48 on vacation? No, no one's with me on that one. All right. So we'll move on to, I'll take a motion to approve of the minutes for March 9th, 2026. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion, corrections? Yep. All those in favor?
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Okay, 6-0 with one abstention. And next up, we have public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the audience here in the building or those online with us to share anything, any thoughts on anything that's not on the council's agenda this evening. We always endeavor to provide people a chance to talk with us on agenda items as they come up. So anybody online, Cody? And I don't see anybody jumping out of the seats. Okay, don't zoom out. All right, we'll move on to, we also have public comment period at the end of the meeting as well. Presentation discussion items. We're going to do first a presentation on FY 2027 big picture budget of Orono version 1.2. We had a good conversation in our last meeting, and this is another look at it. Mitch, do you and staff have things you want to walk us through?
Sure. So once again, Clint was very disappointed that he couldn't be here today. And that wasn't just because of the nightmare of travel issues he was having. But I think that one of the things he really was excited about was talking about the budget and the budget process. And we have changed what we've done in the past, and you're starting to see the new iteration of that, in that you're seeing budgets in the past. I think by the time council saw a budget, it was the recommended budget by the manager. And he's hoping that you guys are now starting to see the iterations that actually these budgets go through before they even get to that point where it's the manager's recommended budget. So what you see before you today is, I think he named it 1.2. And it is 1.0 was kind of, here are all the numbers. We've looked at it a little bit. Department heads have really worked through it, and and looked at it, and it's kind of that first kind of swing at things. 1.2, you won't see drastic changes, but what you will probably see some changes. I think you're going to see a little bit of revenue change, and that's kind of fine tuning the revenue and working through places that we think either need to go up or down. And the other place that we did some work was around wages and trying to get those kind of nailed down. Obviously, still negotiations with unions, so those are not finalized, but some of the other stuff, the non-union stuff, are closer to that place at this point. So you'll see those adjustments there. One of the big things that I wanted to point out is that one of the bigger changes in the revenue was around, and I'm sure Chris will maybe like this, but we looked at how administrative fees from WPCF were kind of charged to WPCF from us. And I think they'd kind of been doing it on a flat rate and looked at a little different way in which we kind of created a formula that took into account the percentage of the WPCF's budget of the overall town budget, and then use that percentage to then look at kind of key places where that administration happens for WCF. So they were able to look at that, which increased that revenue a little bit, and it seems to be more accurate and looks like a good way to look at this moving forward, because as the budgets adjust, it will fluctuate that percentage to be a little bit more accurate each year. So that is one place that was a pretty big change. The other thing is, I think what the goal is for tonight is really kind of honing in on what if there are council expectations that staff should be taking into consideration when really looking at what that manager recommended budget is. There was some conversation over the first one around operating expenses and percentages, but I think really the goal for us, and what I'd love to be able to bring back to Clint, is kind of, if you guys have other things now seeing this, the other addition to this that's a little different is all of the department budgets were in there as well. I know there was a little bit of a mishap with that. We did get that corrected. And then I know Zach worked on one of the cost center ones that I believe Counselor Marks was looking for a little bit more information and cleared that up. So hopefully this information will allow you guys the opportunity to kind of see where things are right now, and if and maybe some help with what the expectations are and how we can look at this budget moving forward.
Okay. Does anyone have any clarifying questions, immediate questions? In terms of, we've had discussions and kind of a little bit of direction setting at our last meeting, right? When we talked about, was it 7% as opposed to 9%? Anything?
We also talked about, I think, bringing us back. We were looking at an initial, I know it wasn't really a recommended budget, but whatever the one version is called, that was close to a 2 mil increase. And we had also asked to bring us back, what would 1.5 mil increase look like, or a 1 mil increase? Those are the two things I jotted down at the end of last time.
Okay. Anyone have any more thoughts on suggestions or directions? Feels like you still got your work cut out for you, and you're not there yet, but
Right.
and you may not get there. Those are, the scenarios that you bring back to us, and we'll have to consider what you have.
Yep. So just so I can be clear, and I think it was clear in here, but just to bring it up again, the 7% was directly related to the expense budget. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And we just got, I don't know, I haven't watched that meeting again, but we came to that by sort of saying, 4 or 5 might be more on average, and we're at 9.5 now, somewhere in the middle. We said, okay, 7's in the middle. Certainly if you can go lower, do it. But that's what we asked.
Okay. Everybody else set on the budget piece? Okay. Next up is, in our presentation discussion items, is the fire department non-transport fee.
So I'll start out and then turn it over to Tom, but I know that the question came up around non-transport fees, and if that was a place that we could add things. And I think the preliminary discussion was that we had no mechanism. Obviously, there's a memo here from Chief Higgins, and the fee schedule is there, that we do have mechanisms for charging this. And at least a quick look at the data shows that we have collected some for some of these what we'd consider non-transport. So just wanted you guys to have that, and I will have Chief Higgins add anything he'd like to that.
Well, good evening, everybody. Yeah, since there'd been some questions around lift assist and non-transports, we had started putting together a ordinance when we realized that there really is a mechanism already in place under our fee schedule. So we stopped that, and then we took a quick look at some of the data and found that there'd been to date this year, there'd been 83 non-transports, which 34 had been billed. So pleased to see. I would have thought the numbers would have been bigger in a bad way, but it seems like we're collecting more than what we thought we might be. It certainly was a surprise to me, so I was glad to see that. So we kind of toned it back, and we wanted to make sure that you understood that we are looking at this, analyzing it, and that what I'd like to do is come back in a few weeks with you and maybe look at some data a little closer.
Okay.
I'd be happy if there's anything that you're specifically looking at, or if you just want something for a general update or anything, we'll be happy to do that. So.
Do we have any questions? Okay, just a second. Anybody else? Okay, Council Marks?
Thanks. This isn't something that I had really ever thought about before, and I don't know that much about. And I was curious, when we're looking at the fee schedule, I see that it says the no transport fee, and then it says this includes lift assist and fall responses to skilled care and staffed residential facilities. I guess the word includes, I was just curious, are we also talking about billing every citizen who calls and says, I need help with something, where they end up not needing to be transported? Or is this, I'm not sure how this language is being applied right now. Are we only billing skilled facilities? Are we billing individuals? Are we talking about how we're going to do that, whether it's going to be both or just one or the other, or where are we at on that?
To the best of my knowledge, at this point in time, we're only billing facilities, and only one facility, because they have a organized policy of their own that they do no lift assist. So they're responsible for those folks, and they don't have that. So if they call us, we're doing that. My administrative assistant tracks that, bills it, and monitors for the money to come in. So she does a great job with that. And that's what that's talking about in the memo right here, the numbers that are here based on.
So those 83 were all from a skilled facility that needed?
No, all of them were calls that came, but only 34 were billed to the facilities. The other 59 or whatever it would be, likely weren't billed anywhere. They were for people that, this places will get calls for people several times, maybe in a week, maybe in 2 weeks. Sometimes those calls will come in often enough, but only with one crew. So it doesn't hit the radar for our management team, and that we might have a problem. When we do discover there's a problem, that someone's calling too much, and it could be because they really need the help, if they need to be helped off on the floor, but it might be that they're trying to get something in place. And I personally have experienced that in my own family members, of it taking a while to get it in place. So there are some that will exceed later in the fee schedule, will exceed the 3 times in a year, but it allows me the opportunity to address that. And we're not looking to mull people over with expenses, not at all. I'm not anyway.
Yeah,
I'm
me
more,
neither. I mean, I feel like that's my concern, was I don't want to be billing folks who are struggling to try to figure out how to meet a need at that moment. And did you just, it's hard for me to hear you. Did you just say something about more than 3 times, or I didn't hear what you said?
yes, if you look in the fee schedule that is with the memo, it shows down like 5 or 6 from the bottom, lift assist of 3 or more in the year. And then talk about how much it would be, but it's subject to the fire chief's review.
I see that. Yeah,
And-
thank you.
And Deputy Chief Hardison has helped us on a number of these where we've had people that have called several times. Most of the time, they're looking for help, and we're looking to get them the help they need. So,
Great. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sarah, I think ultimately to answer your question, I think we're looking for some guidance on what direction you'd like to go, because I think this was hatched out of a question from council about this type of thing. And just to clarify, the 83 are non-transports. Those calls
Yes.
were all just non-transports. It weren't necessarily to or from any place in particular. The ones that were billed were specific to the skilled facility.
And so I guess that also clarifies for me, the reason the other ones weren't billed is because we're not billing folks who aren't at a skilled facility. And I think that's great personally. I'm sure other counselors might have different opinions, but I just wasn't sure if we weren't billing them because we had missed them somehow, but we haven't billed them because they don't fall in the category in which we are billing.
There's
Is
just
that
a
correct?
myriad of reasons why. It might be because somebody saw you fall on the sidewalk, so they're a good Samaritan, they call, well, you come and we do the paperwork. That's a no transport. So it's not anything we're going to bill anybody on, something like that. So there's just a whole bunch of different things can look at. So we'll go back, we'll look at some more of the data and see if we can find anything. I think like what I put in there, something about missed opportunities. And we'll see if we are, or find out whether we're doing things right or wrong. And we certainly want to do the right by the citizens.
So Andrew, did you have something? John, go ahead. No, go. Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, because I think when I initially read this memo, I misinterpreted billing. We're talking about like sending an invoice to a skilled facility and not billing through insurance or something like that. Is that part of this equation? Is the administration of like working through insurance for these kind of calls? Is that something that is
We build,
prohibitive or?
we build a facility. I don't know what they do. I think different facilities, in my experience, other places do different things. Some pass it on, depends on what their organization's like, pass it on to the client that's there. Some may, I don't know if there's an opportunity for billing insurance company, but I think they do different things. Some of them may just absorb it.
Yeah.
So
But in terms of like an individual in the community who has good, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know if that's like a covered service in terms of interventions that are offered, but like, is that part of the conversation? I thought we had talked about insurance previously.
There's a
Part
lot
this
of
conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversations at the legislature about treat non-transport
Yeah.
and community paramedicine and where it all falls. And there will be legislation potentially passed this year that could expand treat no transport services. So it's something that I think the department's going to want to look through as part of its work with EMS, the main bureau of EMS and things like that. But there could be more opportunities for when people refuse transport, you show up and you respond to a call and someone refuses transportation somewhere. There still could be opportunities to bill that person's insurance company for the services you provide at that location.
I think in my experience, I want to go on, but there are opportunities at times that you need to be able to assess a value to what we're doing. And what our fee structure here is does assess a value. I was part of something with somebody that called 127 times. And everything from wanting the light switches shut off, because this is a young person that had a debilitating disease. They were not ready to go to a nursing home and they fought it right to the very end. But we did the right thing in the end, and I heard that she's doing very well. So that's good.
Okay. Did anybody else? Did you, Andrea?
I'm raised the question about non-transport fees, and I like seeing subject to review by the fire chief, because I definitely don't want these fees being used as a weaponized against the community, because taxes are what they are. But like you just said, the example you said, the excessive calls, that's my concern, is the excessive calls. And I appreciate knowing that you're doing for residents what Chief Merrill's team is doing for the unhoused, in that if you see that they need services, you're finding a way to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way.
Okay. Anything else on this one?
So can I just clarify from a follow-up perspective? is council happy with the direction we're going in and good at looking at us to continue down this path with charging these services, making sure that we're doing it correctly, or are you looking for something additional?
Doesn't feel like any of us are eager to charge people more for emergency services. But at the same time, I think it does make a lot of sense to use these visits as an opportunity to help get people the help they need. If you have more than 100 visits, I mean, that's those, there's more conversation to be had there about just what a burden it is for the town. So feels like you're on the right track, but I'm not anticipating any ordinance change or anything like that we're gonna wanna, anybody wanna vote on that one? So,
No, when you
Okay.
brought up at the state legislature level, Dan, if that changes, that gives local fire departments or ambulance services the potential to bill people's insurance,
that's right.
not them, their
Yep.
insurance for
Yeah.
services offered. That would be interesting if that happened, but it's not there now.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
So that's an expanding, potentially, they're building out the infrastructure for that kind of community paramedicine work and those things. So,
Perfect.
okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Great,
Thank you. Okay, next up is a discussion about 360-degree survey consultant discussion. I know, Sarah, is this something you have, or is it,
I
Mitch,
guess-
do you have something from?
You have something Clint sent, or do you want me to start? I don't know.
Yeah. So he told me that you were in a good place and I would just add if I needed to.
Okay, sounds good. So this is something that's on the nominations, evaluations, and council policy committee's ongoing charge each year to take a look at the 360 evaluation process and make a recommendation back to council. We talked about this at our last NECAP committee meeting, and we had been talking about it a bit prior to that as well. Out of last meeting came a recommendation. We would like to recommend to council that we consider using Lori, and I'm always say Lori's last name wrong. Is it Boucher or Bouchard with a D? There we go. Lori Bouchard, as the consultant to help us run the surveys this year. Lori has been doing the work for us on the personnel policy handbook and working closely with Clint on that and lots of other personnel matters, and has done a really terrific job. Clint's been really happy with the work. I think council's been really happy with the work. And she had stated this was something she could do. Clint had talked with all of his senior staff. Mitch could say more about that, but my understanding is with all senior staff to make sure that staff felt comfortable with that. And the answer we got back at our NECAP meeting was yes, definitively, folks did. So our recommendation would be that. Cost-wise, I believe last year we spent a $2,000 flat fee with GFA. And the cost this year would be an hourly rate with Lori, the same that we pay her for her other work, with a cap of no more than 15 hours, Clint said, to develop it and with us and administer. And so I think if it hit the 15 hours, it would be higher than the GFA fee. It would hit 3,000 instead of 2,000. Clint thinks quite likely that it will come in at or lower than the 2,000 potentially. But given the quality of work that we've seen from Lori, we were all feeling like this would be what we would recommend as the way to go forward.
So recommend for Lori,
That's it.
and we had that later in our meeting, right?
But if people have questions.
Yep.
that'll be-
Any questions about that? And again, we've got an action item on this 2653 for those looking ahead in tonight's agenda. All right, that's the end of the presentation discussions. We're a little ahead of schedule, but that probably won't last for long. We are going to open a public hearing to consider amendments to the Town of Orono Code of Ordinance, Chapter 34, Traffic and Vehicles. We had a presentation from Shelley Crosby at our last meeting about this. There's a background memo from her. This comes out of the ordinance committee. Is there anyone here who'd like to be heard on this public hearing? Seeing none, hearing none online. I'm seeing Cody's just you can give me the. Yeah, no. I've got the signal from Cody that nobody in our audience would like to be heard. So we will close the public hearing. And just for our information and public's information, this will come forward again for, will it be in 2 weeks or 4 weeks? 4 weeks for council action on this process. Okay, where we'll have a discussion. All right, next up is acknowledgement by council members. We'll start, John, on your side of the table and move to the left side of the table, and then I'll go last.
I don't have anything at the moment.
Preemptive acknowledgement to Zach and everybody else who is just finishing up one audit, starting another one, and putting together our budget packet for this year. A lot of hours and a lot of work.
I have nothing.
Okay, Council Marks?
Yeah, I was looking at the Orono Observer when it came out this time. And of course, always that leads me to a thank you to Cody. But also really, I was just struck again by the really incredible variety and array of programs offered by our Parks and Rec and Library, and how lucky we are to have those in our town. Thank you.
Council Artisan?
None tonight.
Council Larway?
None at this time.
Okay. I would just like to thank the town and the university and the community for the professionalism and, I guess, care and grace in which it handled the search for Chance Lauer. It was very difficult news to hear last week that Chance had been located, but and I know a lot of people spent a lot of time trying to find Chance when he first went missing, and we hope it gives the family and the community some closure. It's very difficult news, but appreciated the way that everyone came together to try and find somebody who was had gone missing, and it's very sad news. But thank you for the work that everybody did. Okay. Action items number 8 on our agenda. Action item 2650 is an order setting the date of April 13th, 2026 at 5 p.m. for a public hearing to consider amendments to the Town of Orono Code of Ordinances, Chapter 20, Law Enforcement, Article 3, Disorderly Property. Can we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Excuse me. So this comes up from the Good Neighbor Committee. And I know, Dan, if you want to come up and give us maybe any additional updates you have on, but the Good Neighbor Committee was formed by the council. And if you follow the memo that's included in tonight's packet, you can go back and see all of the background information, the participants, who's there, how we've been meeting. But the man of the hour and is Chief Merrill, and they've been doing a fantastic job implementing the disorderly property ordinances kind of as intended. And that's what we learned at our last meeting. But Chief Merrill was prepared to give us a little more update to keep us as timely as possible.
Yep. So thank you for that, Dan Merrill, Police Chief. So as I'd emailed out later this or at the end of last week, I am happy to report that the numbers that we'd provided in the Good Neighborhood Committee when we met a couple weeks ago are still virtually the same. I haven't had any violations of the ordinance since early February. And so we haven't had anything since. And I checked again this morning. Actually, I checked this afternoon before I came to the meeting. I believe we'd only had one noise complaint since the meeting a couple weeks ago, and I didn't have any this weekend. So that means that we still stand at one noise complaint in the last 3 weeks. So that's at a very high level where we stand. And, when you look at the spreadsheet, I think one of the things that we talked about the most at the committee that the councils expressed their pleasure with was the deference, I guess, that's shown to people, and the tolerance, the discretion, if you would, that the officers are using when they're choosing to enforce these ordinances, and the systems that are kind of in place to where, the town manager and myself look at these also, and we review them before we issue any fines. So there isn't just a single layer of enforcement. There's a bunch of layers mixed in, and then we enforce them as we expect the council thinks we want to. And as far as the fines and the fees go, completely supportive of whatever the town wants to do for modifying and updating the fee schedule. We talked about this a lot in the meeting that we had last time. We're trying something new, and there's probably going to need to be changes made along the way as we learn and grow. And I think this is where we're at with that. So with that, that's where we're at.
Okay. So in total, I don't know if anyone has any questions for Dan, but just to you go through the data that he's provided to us, and we have had 62 resident reports from Orono residents prompting some kind of police response, kind of aligned with the disorderly event, disorderly activity ordinance. 19 of those resulted in an investigation of some kind, 10 warnings, 8 resident fines, all of them after 10 p.m., resulting in at least a $600 fine because we had the doubling after 10. 1 landlord fine for a second violation, and we do not enforce the disorderly activity ordinance in the university zone. So we use that information to kind of assess where we were and take some recommendations from the students who joined the Good Neighbor Committee, and come back with a set of recommendations for the ordinance improvements that have been vetted by our town attorney, and they're in today's agenda, both, I think, the red line edits are in the agenda for our review. And if we act tonight, we'll have a public hearing April 13th, and we'll be looking to take action in early May. So I don't know, John or Rob, if you have anything else any thoughts from the committee meeting?
I was just going to reflect agreement that I think the numbers that we have, a third of those calls resulting in investigations and only half of those being warnings, and just a handful resulting in fines, I think is indicative of that process, that it is, at least, I think there's wording where it could potentially be stricter enforcement in there if necessary, but I think the way it is being implemented now is really shown in those numbers, and I think those will be really valuable to continue to look at in the future. And that was some feedback that I had heard from students following our meeting as well, just wanting us to continue to be aware of those numbers and hoping to continue to see that it is a conversational process and a educational process, and not just punitive.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important that students have been willing to be involved in helping us both review the numbers and also consider improvements, because we need buy-in from the entire community to help spread awareness, to help achieve improvement, and when necessary, as a last resort, to have some teeth that we could, repercussions if to make sure that people do pay attention to the behavioral expectations we have in Orono. So the one piece that came up that was suggested as a potential change was an annual cap of total violations, and the breadth of the committee thought, no, you got to be able to continue to have consequences if there's someone that's persistently being a problem in a neighborhood, and that's what this report does, and the violation structure, and egg on my face for thinking that 10 p.m. meant something in a college town in terms of, I think we still want to, every investigation was after 10 p.m., which, boggles my mind, but it is, every violation was after 10 p.m., which I'm long asleep by that point. But the work I think there still needs to be an awareness, and we'll work with Cody. Paying attention, Cody? I gotcha. Hanging on every word, right? We'll work with Cody and the team to make sure people understand that, 10 o'clock is still, more vigilance around these things at 10 o'clock at night, and it's time to kind of turn it down and maybe take it inside. So anybody else have any questions in terms of what's next, or Council Marks?
Yeah, I think I just want to recap for myself to be sure that I caught where all the significant changes are. And I also just want to say thank you. I think this committee's done really incredible work, and I think our staff have done really great work. And I'm really glad to see that the collaborative effort and the follow through on the commitment, which was to try it out and see what worked and what needed to be tweaked, and then come back and tweak. The things I noted as I was reading through the report as the changes were what you mentioned about having a maximum fee that you could be charged for an event, other than the sort of endless doubling that would double forever.
Yep.
So those maximums are now 1,200 if it's an event with under 20 people, and 1,500 for events with over 20 people.
Yep. If you
Okay.
get to your 4th or beyond violation, it's $1,200 or $1,500.
And then the other significant change I saw was that, and I think you were hinting to this about the 10 p.m., basically just sort of eliminating that fines double after 10 p.m., because in reality, they're all mostly after 10 p.m. to begin with. So the doubling after 10 PM went away, correct?
Right.
Okay. And then the other thing was, I think what you mentioned was this sort of rebate program where if someone pays and then they actually behave well for the next year, they can ask to get their fee back from the town at the end of a year. Did I understand that correctly?
That's right.
And those are the three big changes. Is that right? Did I miss anything?
I think those are the three big, that's how I think and I really like the rebate one. So, good behavior pays, improvement pays. And I think that came from staff originally, so really appreciated that suggestion. And there's an interest and willingness to do it retroactively to the start, because we've had, a lot of people that have had an opportunity, we've had an opportunity to engage with people through the ordinance, and there's been good learning and good results. And, why not? This isn't about raising money. This is about spreading awareness. So, yeah, sure.
Thanks. That was helpful to me, just to be sure I hadn't missed something. And then the other question I did have was, I did notice that there were a fair number of people who just never paid their fine when they were issued one. So I was curious, what is the procedure around that? If folks don't pay a fine in Orono for anything, not necessarily just this, what is the procedure for that?
So that is something that I don't, maybe we haven't talked about it here, but we've talked about it at the committee level, and I know Clint's talked about it with Dan and John. That is one of those, we're figuring out what that looks like going forward. Discussion was had about utilizing collections like we would for parking fees and such. And that way we can try and get people to pay their fines that way. So currently we would, if we haven't seen a fine, there's a due date, right? Because it's a bill on the bill. If we don't get payment by then we can send a second notice. If we don't get it after the second notice, then that's when we would talk about progressing towards the collections route. And I know that we probably are at that on a few. And to be completely honest, we just haven't had time to figure that path forward out yet.
Yeah.
And also now I would say giving deference to, if we're going to do a rebate program, maybe we're not going to pursue those as hard as we did initially. The unpaid ones so far.
I think you got to pay it. You got to pay it if you're going to get the rebate.
Right.
And yeah, I think we talk about timely payment in the, so that'll be, we'll talk about that at the public hearing in Clint's back, but I think it'll be, timely payment of the disorderly DA1, disorderly activity. You got some bureaucracy going, you start the acronyms, right? And you start the DA1, timely payment, and then, eligible for a rebate at the end of the year. So.
I love the eligible for a rebate if paid timely, but I also do think that folks should be held accountable if they just ignore and don't pay. So I hope that we do have a process in place for that too, I guess is all I'm saying.
Yep.
So just, it's very, not unlike any code violation where you have a code violation and there's a monetary value with that. We have a process in place that's very similar to what Dan's already talked about. So I don't think it would be hard to apply that here as well. So.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? All right. Any comments from the public? Okay. I guess we'll move to the vote. All those in, we got a motion and second already. All those in favor of setting the public hearing for April 13th, 2026 on order 2650? That's unanimous. Okay. Thanks, Dan. Order 2651, order authorizing the town manager to reallocate the 75,000 designated fire department defibrillators to be used for purchasing $67,500 of turnout gear. Hello, Chief Higgins.
Second.
Do I need a motion? Sorry,
So moved.
yeah, that was my fault. Got a move from Andrea, and did we have a second?
Jake.
Excellent, sorry. I mess it up sometimes. Go ahead, sorry.
Oop. It looked like it was a little bit on. Our gear, frankly, is in terrible shape. And we dropped some money from the budget when we were preparing last year in hopes that we would be an awardee of an assistance to firefighter grant, a regional grant for a bunch of the fire departments in the area. Unfortunately, we did not receive the grant. So since then, we've had a discussion, been going through the gear and found that truthfully, it's in worse shape than what I thought it was. And so therefore I came back to the manager to talk to him about it, and he challenged me to look around and see where I might be able to find funding for it. I came back to him suggesting that we use the defibrillator money, frankly, because it's not the amount that's there, the $75,000 is only 1/3 of the amount. We have 3 defibrillators, so we'll need to look at that process in the future. And the staff, they're getting ready to come out with new stuff, and they were concerned about first generation on anything, and ours are in good shape and are in under warranties, or we have what do I want to call it? Oh, the service contracts. There we go. We have service contracts on them and keep them in good shape. So so therefore, I'm here tonight asking about $67,500 to buy 15 sets of turnout gear for our people.
And that would just be a reallocation of funds. There's no additional funds asked.
Okay. Any clarifying questions? Any comments from the public? Any discussion? Good. Great. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, everybody. This is very good thing for our firefighters. Appreciate it.
Yep. Definitely appreciate those who've led the conversation on this. So thank you. I'll take a motion on order 2652, an order directing the town manager to review the results of the scored Orono stop survey. Present findings at the next community development committee meeting on project recommendations and initial timelines. You have a motion?
So moved. Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Matt, you want to walk us through this? or-
Yeah. So, sort of like we're developed, or the town staff has developed, kind of a plan to, going into the future on how we're going to deal with our facilities and with all of our equipment. We're also developing a plan to deal with, community concerns about traffic safety, pedestrian safety, a whole raft of things that have to do with commuting. And as part of that, we have gotten a survey back, and we've scored it, and we've scored it with priorities, but we're at the point now where we need more expertise on how we will start making basically a 5-year plan. What kind of projects, what will it involve? And so this is, we have turned over that list to the staff who has more expertise as to how involved some of this stuff will be, and they'll come back with their recommendations with a priority on the first 9, but they have to take into account the whole list, because that may have some timing issues depending on where those things fall, how easy, how difficult, a whole raft of moving parts that they have expertise that we don't have as a committee.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Matt or Mitch? Do you have anything to add, or?
The only thing that I would maybe add to that is that I know that this says that would be the next community development meeting, is maybe if there was a little flexibility in that understanding that we will try our best to get everything back there. We will come with something at that meeting, but it may need more questions. But I also know that some of this is around trying to get maybe some numbers for this year's budget. So trying to figure that out. And we're tight in that timeline. I think it can be done, but I just want to make sure that we have enough time to do it right and get you guys the answers that you're looking for. That's all.
Fair.
And Council Baker?
So, good job compiling these. Column 1, if I understand, that's the highest. Those are the priorities. So 62, 56, 55, that's priorities. Okay.
Yep.
All right. And then as it relates, these are all good ideas. I would put the caveat on here though, that, we decided to essentially kind of punt on capital projects for this year with the intention of putting the money into the police station and the library and others. So I want to be cognizant of some of these costs and keep that in mind, that I'd want to know the costs of all of this.
Yeah, not only getting some broad range ideas of what the costs are, but some of the like ways of addressing some of these issues may be as simple as like we need to repaint or move a crosswalk painting, which could be done in the normal cycle of funding that we have and wouldn't necessarily need additional funding. And so this is why we're turning it over to them, is to get that also. And of course, anything that is going to cost a lot of money, I mean, we'll be bringing this back to the council, but we're going to need to make this a plan going into the future. And that's the whole point of getting these costs. I understand. Thanks, Jacob.
Jacob, I would also just add that part of what staff will do is also look at ongoing projects and where some of these things might already be being addressed in other projects that are already happening, just to understand the timelines of what those are.
Council Marks?
Thanks. And I had the same question as Jacob. I assumed that's what that column meant, but it was really helpful to know that that is the rating. And I guess I'm sure you all know this and you may have told us before, but that rating came from how often people asked for it, or how did that rating occur?
John, you want to walk? John
Some
did.
basics. I don't need every detail.
No, it's
but
okay.
yeah.
So what we did we took the initial results from the survey and created a scoring rubric, which the three of us went through to as objectively as possible. And it focused on potential risk, whether or not it's already part of another project, how clear the problem was, in our opinion, how clear a potential solution might be. I believe that was our 5 criteria, and they were weighted for what we viewed as being higher priorities, like life and safety. Number of people it influenced or impacted in the community was another one of the categories. And that's where those numbers came from, was our as objective as we could be rubric.
That makes really good sense. Thanks. I'm really grateful for this. I can say that I think, one of the metrics of a government that's functioning is when people are bringing ideas forward about things that feel unsafe, physically unsafe in their community, that there is a response to that, and a timely response, an organized response. And I've loved the work that the Community Development Committee is doing to help us as a council do that and be sure that we are responding back. I appreciated Mitch's comment too. That was my only concern when I read the order, was just, I'm aware that there is probably some urgency to try to do it to help inform the budget that we're building. And I'm also aware it's budget season for staff, which is crazy time. So it sounds like staff is feeling like they can bring something back in this timeline from what I heard from Mitch. And that was really my only concern.
Yep.
So thanks.
We heard that in our community development meeting as well. So it was kind of negotiated in terms of what's the right, Mitch, this is Mitch, what should we do next? And so that's how it came together. We also anticipate getting some kind of update from staff at our next community development meeting about the speed on Main Street and the order, council passed an order looking for action there, and also the project down here on Oak Street and Main Street at the bottom of the hill. Okay. Anything else on this? We didn't have any public comment. And all right, all those in favor of order 2652? That's unanimous. Okay. Next up is order 2653, an order authorizing the town manager to enter into an agreement with Lori Bouchard of L. Bouchard Associates LLC to coordinate the 360-degree town manager and town council survey this year, as recommended by the Nominations, Evaluations, and Council Policies Committee.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, it's moved and seconded, and we already had a presentation item on this. Is there anything else that anybody would like to share? This seems like it's going to be a lot smoother than our last attempt last year to get this going, so that's good. Any public comment? Any discussion? All those in favor? Excellent, that's unanimous. And that concludes our action items. Now we'll turn to council committee reports. Community Development Committee.
You just heard the report, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Finance and Operations Committee.
Yes, we had the audit presentation today, and so the intention will be to bring the audit for the full council to review within the next couple of council meetings. And then there was some discussion today. So the committee has been charged with exploring the request from the local Cub Scout troop to buy the old schoolhouse building down on North Main. That has stalled. The sponsor, KCI, has decided that they don't want to essentially guarantee that building. The troop is looking for other options, but it could be a while before they come back to us with another request. So Sarah's suggestion was to bring this up to the committee, if you or up to the full council, if you want to continue to keep this item on our committee's charge, that's fine. Or if you want to have it settled and we'll put it back on when and if there is an action to take, we can do that too. I need some guidance.
Okay. Let's talk about guidance. So there's no, so this path is closed to us in terms of disposing of the building. I assume the Boy Scouts want to continue to use the building as they've been using it.
They're rarely using it now because of the state that it's in. So they can't use it in the winter. So kind of the one path is they'll continue to behave as is. The other path is for them to come up with another option, whether, get a sponsor organization to lease the building from us, to buy it from us, what have you. That'll all be brought back to council, but the current committee item that we've been charged with is selling it to the scouts through the council. That is no longer going to happen.
Do we, I feel like, we had an interest, it seemed like a slam dunk opportunity when you had a user that was using it and it was going to be consistent. And, so darn it.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
But in fairness, the
Reckon-
council, rightly so, doesn't want to take on the liability of that building.
Right. So it's kind of like, what do we do? I think we still have an intention of trying to dispose of the building and not maintaining it because it's not really, but
So I would make a suggestion that due to the timing of this conversation
Yeah.
and what staff has the ability to take on right now,
right.
there is a little bit of time available to see if the Boy Scouts come up with a different plan, but also staff may be starting to look at this come summertime of a new direction.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll let it sit
Councilor
at
Martin.
committee.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say, Mitch, was that I think as a council, maybe we should put this on our list of things to come back to in the summer when we're through budget season. And I would say from my memory of the last conversation, we were interested in disposing of the building to the Boy Scouts, but I would not say in general there was consensus that we were interested in disposing of it. I think it was to a specific use. Some folks are very interested, I think, in disposing of the building and getting it off of, town. And I'm not sure that others are. I know I'm not necessarily. It's one of the very few actual historic buildings in our town. And I think we need a bigger conversation if we're going to just decide it's going out to bid in general. I want to talk to the Historical Society and a lot of other things. So I would like it to come back to be a full council discussion sometime in the summer would be my preference.
So just slap a for sale sign on it and
Yeah, not comfortable
not
for
like
me.
the Public Works building where we tried that and didn't,
I would
Okay.
second what Sarah said. That makes a lot of sense to me. That seems prudent.
I'm sorry, Rob.
That seems prudent. I agree with Sarah.
Yeah. Okay, then, yeah. And so that's good on finance. Okay. Nominations, evaluations and council, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Is that how they go?
Yeah.
Okay, kneecap. Yep.
I think there's a couple different things on my report. I might have them in the wrong order. I think the first was just an update on the policy and procedures manual in general, to let council know that we have worked very hard. It is very close to being ready to bring to you, but we are waiting for the town attorney's feedback on a list of questions that we sent to the attorney. So until that happens, we can't really bring it back to you. We were hopeful that would have happened before our March meeting, but it didn't. So I think Clint will continue to push and ask the attorney to get it to us as soon as possible. So hopefully might be possible to bring to you in April, but also aware of the budget timeline. And I think we're going to leave that decision up to Clint for whether, it fits into our agendas in April or it needs to hold a little bit longer. But we haven't forgotten it, and we haven't, just wanted you to know we are working actually very hard. It's just now we're at sort of a hiatus waiting. The part that we did send to you attached to this committee report was about the town council year calendar. It's kind of a template for what the town council year looks like. And I think that was a really significant and important part of the project also, in the belief that Dan said this quite clearly, that as a council chair, he wants a template that he can look at to be like, this month, what do I have to be tracking to make sure we're doing what we need to do to stay on track as a council? We tried to build it so it would be useful, not just for council chair, council leadership, but also committee chairs. It flags certain things that committees need to do by certain months of the year in order to make the presentations that council is expecting from them at certain times of the year. Also for staff, especially Amanda, our amazing parliamentarian there. There's a lot of moving pieces that connect back and forth, obviously, between what council is doing and staff all the time. So we attempted to get all of those things in there. It incorporated all the recommendations from the report of 2024 on council meeting structure and schedule. Another goal was to not have to look at that report anymore and to get everything into one place in this policy and procedures manual. The term town council year is something that we came up with because it's not the same as the fiscal year, which is July to July. It's not the same as the calendar year, which is January to January. The town council year runs from election to election. So this calendar you'll see starts in November after the election and runs till the next November. The hope is that also, if you were a new counselor coming on, you would be able to look at this and say, oh, okay, here's what I can expect to be coming my way at different times of the year. I can highlight for folks if you want anything new that's been added that might be different since, the last 2024 report, but also I could just answer questions if anybody has them from council, but we wanted you guys to get a preview of this, especially in case there's something you think is missing or needs to be added before we bring you back. It'll be in the policy and procedures manual. It's an appendix in the manual.
I have a couple questions. Anybody have any for me? So really good work. I think this is in the binder, right? So it's kind of I foresee some sort of kind of easier to use 2-pager type thing of, and then, see February for all the details. But I do think, as I was reading this again today, it's got everything and kind of sequence it. I'm a little worried we'll never have anybody run for the council again when they see what the calendar is, but it's actually pretty orderly in terms of once you get past the organizational stuff, it is pretty orderly, and we have a very good staff to help us implement it. So I did want to ask, what do you think about, we've done the employee handbook is something we're going to do on an annual basis. We're now going to do, we called the public hearing. We had a public hearing tonight on a new approach to parking. And that'll be an annual event where we update the schedule of parking. Do you think those things need to be in here as well?
Yeah, I looked at that ordinance about parking and thought, oh, maybe we should add this in if we're planning to do this every September. I will also say I reached out to Councillor Laraway, who chairs our ordinance review committee, because as I was looking at it coming into the meeting, it occurred to me also that the ordinance review committee has a calendar each year of what ordinances they're expecting to get to each quarter, each month. And I think it would be nice to have that at the same time the other committees like finance are bringing forth the budget calendar. It'd be nice to have all those things happen at an organized time of the year. So I see that too. We can certainly add. I agree with you on, there's a lot of detail here. So honestly, it's like the reboot if all of us were gone tomorrow, right? Like how would we reboot and start? But I hope that the boldface highlights for every month at the top kind of give an overview for a counselor about this is the main focus going on this month, was kind of the intention. Does that answer that question, Dan? Yes, I think it's probably smart to put the September parking in there if we intend as a council to do that every year. I don't know, have we passed that yet, or is that coming up?
No, it'll be,
Right.
we're
So-
on the public hearing, but we'll do it. We do the handbook every year now.
Yeah.
So we, make updates on an annual basis. And I don't know if it's as much a part of the manager's work plan, but some of these things are,
Yeah.
we're going to do the parking thing every year, right? So
Yeah.
we'll have to approve it and
And the personnel policy handbook
personnel
every
policy
year.
handbook every
Yeah,
year. And
and the ordinance review is one I caught. So the other thing I will say is that, the intention is that this will be looked at every year. It's in the calendar that the Nominations Evaluations Committee needs to look at this once a year, starting in the summer, and bring any changes needed back to council in September so that hopefully it stays up to date. Because obviously it's only as good as we keep it up to date. It's accurate now to what we're doing now as best as we were able to make it. And I do have one question for council when people are done with their own questions.
Yep.
Go ahead.
anybody have any other?
Not a question, just referencing what Sarah just raised about ordinance review committee. We can talk about that at our meeting this Thursday about what exactly that might look like, because we do have an ongoing calendar that
Yep.
tells roughly when everything is planned to be looked at. And of course, it's more than a yearly schedule.
Yep.
So we can talk maybe about what format what format would make the most sense for us to alert council to what we're planning to be looking at in the following year. And I guess we can update from there, but we'll
Yeah,
talk about that on
100%.
Thursday.
I'd want to hear from ordinance review committee. I just think it's probably important enough that council should at least once a year be sure we've gotten something from ordinance review, because otherwise it's a pretty important, transparent thing for the public to know what ordinances in what order are expected to get looked at. And it also holds council accountable that when we bump stuff to the top of the queue, what that means is we're pushing other things further down. And we tend to do that a lot with ordinance review committee. So, yep, great. Does anyone else have questions?
I didn't have a specific question, I guess, but I would agree with that, new on council, this being a really useful document. And I appreciated the addition. And I think that will also need to be something that's kind of regularly updated, but the addition of the, kind of like events around town, pool closing, opening, the trunk or treat, like those things that, so we can kind of hold these things, in comparison and with what's going on in the community as well.
Thanks.
Okay.
I had one question to council. I don't know if it came through. It was originally a comment box question, but I don't know that it came through in what you saw. But you probably noticed that one thing we tried to do here was to be sure that in the fall there was some housekeeping for all of our boards and committees to be sure that the standing boards of the council, but also our special committees like the Good Neighbor Committee or the Home Committee, it's being formed, that once a year they're asked to take a look at their charge and the tasks that have been assigned to them. And like Jacob did today for Finance Committee, come in and say, hey, this one's been assigned to us and we think we're done with it. Can we get it off our list? Or, we think it's stalled out. What do you want to do next with it? And those are all to happen in the fall. When we wrote it, we realized there's one category of committee that currently there's no actual report back to the council mechanism at all, which is the committees that are not town committees and boards, the ones that we appoint liaisons to, that the town doesn't run ourselves. So for example, OEDC falls in that category. The Orono Historical Society falls in that category. I think the Orono VZ Water Board, I have the title wrong, but, and those, we currently have no mechanism as a council to ever get any report back from those liaisons. And I guess I just have a question for council, like, does it feel important? And if so, would we like that to be just a short written paragraph, like we're asking from the special committees to do in the fall? Or would we prefer that it's just something added to every council agenda, that if there's a report from one of these liaisons, there's a time for them to speak up and make it? Or we were just curious as a committee, because it's not something that council has any procedures around now. Currently, I don't think we hear back from those people at all. So.
Feedback?
I would just say historically, what has happened with those boards in particular is if there is something of interest or feels why that feels like it needs to come back, most of the time those liaisons or those people that are representing will let us know and we'll get it on an agenda so it can be shared. Less informal than that, and I don't know if you need to formalize it more than that, but that's historically what's happened with a lot of those boards. So just.
Okay.
I'm curious how council feels. I don't mind the informal, but I think I'd prefer that it was on the agenda, that if there is a report from any liaison, that there's a time that we ask. Because I don't know, I think it can be hard sometimes for a council rep when you come on and you're new at that anyway, to advocate hard enough to say, hey, I need to get on the agenda to say something about the Historical Society or about, but that might just be my take. Maybe everyone else feels like it's not needed.
I like the idea of on the agenda in the same spot that we're having these updates right now, maybe listing if there are any updates from the following liaisons, and we list all of them so that people are reminded, hey, you're this liaison. Do you have a report? If not, it's fine. But just, I think I like the idea of having it explicitly listed on the agenda, just as a reminder.
So you see it as being like E, then after council chair report, or somewhere on this list of F bullets, there would also be a liaison.
Or
if
maybe
needed.
before council chair. I don't know.
Okay.
How do other people feel about that?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
I don't predict it's going to
I-
be very common
yeah, I
or
think
take
it's
a
one
lot
those
of time.
things- Sometimes there's a lot to say and a lot of times there's not a lot to say, but it would be useful to have that reminder.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Do you have?
I think that was my only question. I also just want to highlight for council that you might notice that one thing that's highlighted throughout here is that council should pay attention to where we are in the year. There's some really great times for us to launch new initiatives, and those are called out. So January into the beginning of February, and working with Clint, those are a good time. And then after that, we're kind of in this 90-day budget window when it's not the best time. And then it calls it out again for us starting in May, that we need to really get serious about looking back at initiatives we started in January, goals we set in December. So I think that's important that it calls that out for us as a council, and just wanted to bring that attention to you guys.
It's interesting, and I mean, this nice thing about this document, and I don't know if maybe it's not nice. It's frustrating that you think about how short you really have to a time you have to do kind of new initiatives. And, because we're giving up, there's a couple months in the start of the year, we're setting goals. We're going to, and here's there's got to be a balance between how much process we have and how much time we spend working on the priorities of the community. And I think the process, when good process keeps the trains running and keeps the routine kind of understood and manageable, so you don't get sideways and you don't lose track of things that you need to be doing to be good stewards of, the process. That's a good thing. If process ends up being at the point where you don't have time to work on the priorities of the community, because now you'll have, this has to be, the calendar is, as I read the calendar and all the different pieces to it, and what I expect will be in the policies and procedures manual, there's a lot of work that needs to be done efficiently and in a timely way, so it doesn't get in the way of the stuff that all of us, perhaps with the exception of Council Marks, right? You've a lot of leadership here, so we've got to find that right balance. And I think we will, but it's got to be, we're going to have to lean on Amanda and Clint a lot to help us with it. But that's got to be, as I look at it, and again, we'll lose a couple months at the end of the year reports and the 360 surveys, and then the assigning new committees and the retreats and the goal setting. And then, oh my gosh, it's budget season. And what about that stuff I ran for council to do? So we've got to make sure that the ongoing work from year to year and in the monthly calendars gets done in a way that doesn't impede upon our other work.
I think, Dan, that's really well said, because I think the goal of the calendar was to actually make that more efficient so that we know exactly what we need to do. It's easy to do it. A lot of it can just show up on a consent agenda, and those things can move forward and allow us as much time as possible to focus on what the council goals are and really moving those forward, the community goals that have hopefully reflected in the council goals. So 100%, the detail is here in a hope to make things move efficiently and clearly, and also so that counselors who are trying to move something forward can plan ahead themselves about, here's your windows, don't miss them, right? Because I didn't know as a counselor when I first came on, you miss this window at the beginning of January, and then you kind of can't really do much during this window of budget season. So hopefully the goal is to make it more visible to counselors where you need to move quickly and be ready to go to most effectively utilize the time. But this is a guideline, and council can always move anything forward whenever it wants to.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Anything else on that one? All right. Do you have appointments updates too, or?
Oh, sorry, I forgot I had a third one. Yes, we're working on appointments. We began talking about applications. We had a good number of applications that came in for the open positions. We ended up deciding to meet one more time in April on the issue because we needed some recommendations back from some of our boards that typically make recommendations, like the tree board and the library board of trustees. They typically look at the applications also and give recommendations to us. And also we're aware that the home committee is being appointed by this council next Monday. if all goes well. And a lot of the applicants overlap. And our intention has been on the Nominations Evaluations Council Policy Committee for the last year to try to be sure that when we have lots of folks in the community that are interested in serving, that we spread out those appointments as much as possible and don't appoint the same person to 3 or 4 committees, but keep that to 1 or 2 per person. So we're going to come back to you in April with a slate. That's the plan.
Okay, thanks. Ordinance Review Committee?
Yep.
Rob?
So we're going to be meeting this Thursday. We were originally going to meet this past week, but staff asked for us to push back a week. So we're going to be talking about upcoming priorities, including Chapter 12 cemeteries, Chapter 36 utilities, Chapter 22 library, Chapter 29 public health and safety, business licensing. So those are sort of looking ahead to see sort of what is on the docket. A lot of this work is still obviously being driven by really what Shelley is able to do in collaboration with the rest of staff. So we'll find out more and we'll update council about what's next on the agenda.
Okay, thanks, Rob. DEIB?
Yeah, I was unable to attend the last meeting, so I won't get way out over my skis. But the committee has recommended 2 people to work with Clint concerning the McQuote Museum Consultant Interpretive Plan. And also, we live in a community that has a mosque. We're one of 8, and I think 8 mosques here in Maine. And if people are interested in learning more about our Muslim neighbors, there is a book club that will be happening by one of the members of the DEIB committee, and that will be over April. And so April 3rd, 10th, 17th, and 24th. And you can find out more about it with flyers, both, I think, on the town site and also at the library. So please join us and learn more about the people living around us. Thanks.
Good. Thanks, Matt. I don't have anything in the council chair update. I don't know, John, do you have anything on the home committee that you want to share, or how we doing?
Not anything that wasn't already mentioned.
Okay.
Just that, I think it's still open until Wednesday and would encourage people to apply if they have some interest in it.
Okay.
I've had some good conversations with folks that are pretty excited about that work. So hopefully we get a lot of strong applications.
Okay, good. I'll turn to the town manager's report. The county tax bill, is that?
So I was glad to see there's no time limit on my today.
Yeah,
so I
take
can
all
go
the time you
as
need.
much time as I need, but so there are a couple other things, but one is we added the county tax bill, which we received. As it was noted in the budget, it is up by about $230,000 this year. But Clint wanted you guys to have that and see it. So just to be aware. A couple other things. Officer Dan Patterson is going to be involved in the 24-hour super plunge this weekend. And I think this last weekend. He just did it. My apology. Just did it. And Dan, did you want to come up and say something really quick? Since you asked me to mention it.
Also, I told you to take you off the hook, so here we go.
Yeah.
So yes, I can speak actually to it. I was there with him this weekend. It was a good time, as always. Having done it last year, I knew what he was going through this weekend. So happy to report, just interesting to the council. He raised $5,105 himself. Altogether, him and 10 other plungers. So there was 11 people total, raised $50,000 for Special Olympics Maine for that one event. So that was a huge, huge success. It started out good, sunny, and then it ended on the last 6 like this, sleet and freezing rain, and they all felt it, and it was bad. And I did the last one with them in honor of doing it last year and to see what it was like in the rain again, and it was equally terrible. So just wanted to plug that for him. You want me to stay up here for the other one too? So the second one that Mitch is going to report on, just an interesting fact to the council too. One of our officers just got back from Florida this past week. Dan Tufts achieved drug recognition expert certification through the Maine Criminal Justice Academy. Long story short, that means that he's one of 107 officers in the state that is trained specifically to detect impaired drivers that are not impaired by alcohol. So anything else that you might get arrested for, that's not alcohol, if you were to get arrested, there's an officer is specially trained. It's 2 weeks in the class and then a week down in Jacksonville, Florida, doing examinations on people, live test candidates. And then it requires testing throughout, and it's extremely hard. And he passed with flying colors. I was in conversations with the coordinator of the program today, and he said he did an excellent job. So just want council to know that we have somebody in house. We've had them in the past. They're super helpful to the region too. So I don't know what the number is up here in Penobscot County, but I know that there's 107, and a bulk majority of that is south of Bangor, because they're to some degree population based too. So real good thing that one of our officers was able to get this weekend. So there's that. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Also, just wanted to make you aware, we've had a few resignations in the last couple of weeks here. Nothing out of the ordinary, people moving on to better things for themselves. And certainly we're still in the process, but we're looking to recruit new people. So just wanted you to be aware of that. Two more things. The second to last thing was I just wanted to shout out to Public Works. I personally, on my way into work, I come from another community and was driving and noticed that, there was snow on the ground this morning and on the roads as I was driving in. And I was thinking, it's a late spring, storm. These are not easy, and giving them the benefit of the doubt. And I hit the town line, no snow. Bald. I mean, there wasn't anything on the roads. And so it says a lot about our Public Works team and how they take pride and they take care of our roads here. And certainly, I'm sure a late March Sunday, they didn't want to be out plowing, but they do a really good job, and just wanted to give them that shout out. And the last thing is to all of our staff, anytime that the town manager's out, it makes it a little bit more difficult because we're down somebody, and our staff really pulls together and works together to make sure that everything is smooth, and certainly makes my life easier when it's that way. So I really appreciate everybody in terms of that. So
I will acknowledge that the town manager's report's a little less focused than it typically is, but that's a little joke about this YouTube stream, and Cody looks like he's trying to fix it, so.
I think maybe I broke the camera.
Get Public Works on it, they'll get it cleaned up. All right, thank you very much, Mitch, and thank you to everybody who fills in when Clint's not here. I will note that it looks like we're on track to be in an early adjournment for tonight with Clint not being here. I don't know what that means, but yep. We do not have any public petitions. Future agenda items, I had one that I had to put on the agenda. Does anybody have anyone before I bring up mine? Mine was an email from former Councilor Kenny, who noted to, I think, Clint and I think a couple of others may have been on it, Sarah and Jacob, that the state has a popular vote for any kind of borrowing, and Orono does not. I think that's something that, so he raised the question about whether we should change the charter. And I told him I would bring it up, but I also wanted to point out that Orono has, we are moving towards bonding for project, capital projects in the town, namely the library. And I would share, and our charter does not require that voters approve a bond question at the ballot box. I did share with Leo that the council has the authority to put anything it wants to out to a popular vote. If we feel like there's a topic that rises to that level, we want the people to decide it. And there is also a fairly low bar for people to overturn a council action. So for instance, if someone doesn't want Lori Bouchard to do the 360, maybe this one doesn't qualify. No, it doesn't apply. It's not an ordinance. But if we spend money or pass an ordinance and residents in the town of Orono have a view that that wasn't the right approach, 5 people can get together, get petitions, and then start a petition process to ask the voters to potentially overturn. You have to get a certain number of signatures on it to get on the ballot, but it could stay and potentially overturn a council action. So I'm not interested in pursuing it. I know we can charter changes involve either a charter commission, or as was the case when we changed the voter, we got an legal opinion 3 years ago and we changed the municipal elections from March to November, we got an opinion that we didn't need a charter commission for that kind of change. But I told Leo I'd bring it up. You know, your voice matters. It's sometimes if there's energy and interest in the council and people want to bring it forward as a future agenda item and start the conversation, people can do that. But I'm perfectly happy to say we brought it up. And so, do you have something?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Discussion. Yeah, I agree
Do
with.
some of the most casual hand raise. It's like literally like an eyebrow raise. I'm trying to like
Well,
read
I don't-
people's. No, you don't.
Dan,
It happens.
choose me.
It happens. I get a little kind of a subtle lean towards the mic, and I read that as, well, Jacob's got something. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I agree with you, but now I don't
Oh,
know
shoot.
anymore. Yeah.
Speak up.
No, anyway, I agree with you, and I think of this from time to time when we have future agenda items brought up. I understand that the your voice matters promise matters, but also in the need of balancing of efficiency and staff resources and time. I'm happy to discuss anything any member of the public wants to, if there are several members of the public that want to discuss it. And this is not specifically aimed just at this agenda item. If more people want to discuss this, then yes, let's have this discussion. If it's a singular person bringing it up, I want to balance the efficiency of everybody's time and resources. So it's not specifically this. I think of, that is other times when we have this, future items discussion. So I agree with you, Dan. If more people want to discuss it, let's do it, but I'm not inclined to do
Okay.
it.
Anyone else? Council Marks?
Yeah, I agree with what you both said already. I think the process is working right now in that there's only a couple ways to get something on an agenda. It's either that the town manager and staff bring it, or that an individual counselor decides that it's important enough that any counselor can put something on an agenda, whether, the whole council agrees or not. But the most typical way we get things there is the council itself says it's important to us as a council. So that's what we're getting a read on, I think, right now. And the other thing I just wanted to say is, just if anyone in the public is listening or cares, it is section 1.1.10 of the charter, which tells you how you can overturn decisions. And as Dan pointed out, it takes very few people to start that process, just 5. It takes quite a few signatures to actually get a charter vote to happen. I think it's 10% of the people who voted in the last gubernatorial election. So, that's certainly in the hundreds, but totally obtainable. And it does apply only to orders or resolves that are appropriating 500,000 or more for a single capital improvement or a bond. So anyway, it does directly address bonds, but not Lori Bouchard's
no.
$3,000 contract, just so we're clear. Okay, thanks.
But you can hold me accountable for voting for that contract this fall if you choose to, when we'll have an election. So, all right. With that, we did get an email from a constituent that came in I think it came in last week, about asking for an ALS Awareness Month proclamation for May. So I'll pass that around. I'll work with Clinton and Amanda about potentially bringing that forward as a follow back up with a constituent and potentially bring that forward through our proclamation process. Okay. Next up is public comment. Anybody have anything for public comment? No? Okay. And we're going to move into executive session. We do not anticipate formal action after the executive session, right? So with that, I would take a motion to move into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA section 456A regarding a personnel matter.
Dan, I'm making a motion.
Second.
I already moved, so.
Did you get me?
I got you.
Okay.
I got you. All right. All in favor? Okay. Thank you. And